Welcome to Greenball. I'm Marie Crowe. In this episode, we are delighted this week to chat with Eimear Richardson, who is back in Dublin ahead of the Ireland Women's Tour to the Caribbean. In our segment Answer Me This, we chat to former Ireland international and current National Talent Pathway Manager Albert van der Merwe. But first, it's hello to our reporter Sean Hussey with the latest Irish cricket news, starting with the Lord's Test. Sean, what are your takeaways?
Well, it was a difficult few days. Obviously a historic occasion, the second time Ireland have played a test match at Lord's. But in truth, it was a pretty one-sided affair. Ireland lost the toss on that opening morning and Ben Stokes put Ireland into bat, and within about half an hour, I think the writing was almost on the wall. It was a difficult start. Stuart Broad took 3 wickets, and we were 19 for 3 after 7 overs or so. So it was always going to be difficult from there. You're coming up against a formidable English side who are getting prepared for the series of a lifetime almost in a couple of weeks in the Ashes. And I think Ireland, only getting 170 in that first innings and then being put to the sword by England getting, 524 runs, declaring. With Ben Ducker getting 180 and Ollie Pope getting 200 was always just a really difficult first couple of days for the Irish side. They did battle back really well in that third innings. I think they'll be really happy that 160 run partnership for the 7 wicket, the highest ever partnership for Ireland between Mark Adair and Andy McBride, gave the big Irish crowd over there something to cheer about, something to take home with them. And I think a lot of people will remember that moment that Ireland took the lead and the big roar went up from the Irish fans in Lord's. But it was just a really disappointing first couple of days, and then it was only that Ireland started to get themselves a little bit into the test match, and by that stage it was a little bit too late, and England notched off the 11 runs in the first over of the fourth innings. So a couple of disappointing things. Obviously James McCullum getting retired hurt with a bad ankle injury, very disappointing for him, considering he'd been pretty happy with top scoring in the first innings, played nicely before getting out, and then the second innings retiring hurt and going to miss a lot of cricket over the next few weeks with that injury. But overall, I think Ireland would have learnt a little bit. I think they would have learnt that there's levels above in Test match cricket, and England showed their class, and England showed why they're one of the best Test sides in the world at present.
Is there a way to get to that level?
Not immediately, no. But I think the strides that Ireland have made in the last 5 years, considering we don't have that county championship or county cricket breeding ground for some of our younger players like we did 10, 15 years ago. Your Lorcan Tuckers, Josh Littles, Harry Tectors, who've risen to prominence in the last few years, have done so through the Irish interprovincial structure. So it's just going to take a little bit of time for that to happen if we are to get to that stage. But England, Australia and India, and maybe even South Africa and New Zealand, are a step above the rest below them, and Ireland are amongst the chasing pack, if you like. That there's almost tiers to the Test game at the moment, to the international game. And I think even to England, Australia, in the next few weeks, you're going to see really high quality cricket. We saw Australia dispose of India really very convincing in the World Test Championship. You see England beat Ireland really convincingly. So that Ashes is going to be proven to be really high quality, I'm sure. And Ireland to face England at the start of their summer when they're getting their preparations in is not an easy task, but that's Test cricket. It's not meant to be easy. Ireland have had a difficult tour of the subcontinent. Great individual success for some of the players, getting centuries, getting 5 wicket hauls. But the Lord's Test match was a little bit disappointing from that point of view. But like I said, the fight that Mark Adair and Andy McBride showed on that third day to make England bat again, I think is something that a lot of fans will take away from the game.
Well, they'll have to regroup pretty quickly because they're already in Zimbabwe. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and this is, I suppose, where the focus has been for the last couple of years, qualifying for the Cricket World Cup later this year in India. And it's not going to be easy. 10 teams start the qualification for 2 spots in Zimbabwe. It starts on the 18th of June. Ireland got a couple of warm-up games before that against the USA and the Netherlands. And Ireland are put in Group B alongside Sri Lanka, Scotland, Oman and the UAE. And then in Group A you've got the host Zimbabwe, former World Cup winners in the West Indies, the Netherlands, Nepal and the USA. So the top 3 in each group progress to the Super 6 stage. And in the Super 6 you'll play the teams that you from the opposite group, so you haven't played already. So i.e. in the Super 6 stage you'll have played 5 games, 2 from the original group and then the 3 teams you haven't played from the opposite group. So in that case it'll be if Ireland were to progress to the Super 6, it'll be either Zimbabwe, the West Indies, the Netherlands, Nepal or the USA, and only points won against fellow Super 6 teams count. So it's a very drawn out process, if you like. Only the top 2 progress from the Super 6 to the final and qualify for the Cricket World Cup. So if Ireland are going to qualify, they're going to need some big scalps. They play Oman first, then Scotland, and then they have a four-day gap to the third game against Sri Lanka. And that is going to be pivotal, I think. If Ireland are to qualify, they're going to really need to find a big performance against Sri Lanka. Of course, you can't write off Oman or the UAE or even indeed Scotland. We know the quality of those sides, but it is a case you're going to have to beat the best teams to qualify. That's the way the structure is in place. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks. Ireland are really going to need to hit top form. It's conditions that Ireland have done okay in. They know the conditions out in Zimbabwe. They play a lot of cricket there. Obviously the last qualifiers for the 2019 World Cup were there. So they won't be alien conditioned to some of these players, but it's a huge couple of weeks and they're going to need to hit good form, because they have shown in the last few years real promise in the 50 over format. They've got a settled middle order with the likes of Tucker and Tector, Curtis Camphor, George Dockrell. So as I said, they're going to need to produce big performances, particularly I think in that third game against Sri Lanka.
Yeah, and you can tell though they're so aware of that, because even in the lead up to Lords, the talk was about qualification and the importance of that and how that was taking precedence. So it seems like they know what's at stake, and with all that in mind, should be able to deal with the pressure, you would hope, and maybe get those narrow victories that they haven't been able to close out in the past.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the interesting thing in those narrow games, that they don't tend to be the highest scoring games out in Zimbabwe. So you do think games are going to be really close. That experience, the likes of Andy Balbirnie, Paul Sterling, George Dockrell, guys who've played in World Cups before, understand what it needs just to even qualify for World Cups. And I think they'll be really disappointed, having watched from afar in 2019 at the World Cup in England. And I don't think they're going to want to miss out on a trip of a lifetime almost to play in a Cricket World Cup at India. You know, some of these guys, as I said, Paul Sterling, George Dockrell did it in 2011, were playing in that famous game against England. You know, the stuff of Irish cricketing folklore, if you like. And just to qualify for this World Cup, and we've heard Andy Balbirnie, the Ireland captain, say it will be a huge achievement, and it is ultimately one of the main priorities for this group to get back to a 50 over World Cup. That being said, it's not going to be easy when you've got Sri Lanka, you've got the West Indies, you've got Zimbabwe, you've got the Netherlands, Scotland, who are all playing really good cricket, who are all growing as well. Sri Lanka are really coming back to the fore. Ireland, of course, will know them from the 2 test matches earlier in the year. We've beaten the West Indies away from home a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure Ireland will fear too many of the sides, but I definitely think that third game against Sri Lanka in the original group stage, just to qualify for the Super 6, will really be one they should be targeting, and one they should be hoping if they can win that, they'll give them a real lift to qualifying for the World Cup, because 10 teams for 2 spots with the likes of West Indies, Zimbabwe, as I said, Zimbabwe, Sri Lanka, it's not easy, but if Ireland were to pull it off, I think it'd be one of the better achievements in recent years of Irish cricket.
When you look at the progress that they've made under Heinrich Malan, or I guess the improvements that they've made, and there have been significant ones, what are the areas though that they do need to just to maybe make some gains in? Yeah,
I think that there's probably a couple of spots up for grabs really in the team. I think it's a case of what way they work the top 3 with Balbirnie and Paul Sterling. Do they open with them too? Stephen Doherty had been used as an opener. He hasn't made the squad, wasn't picked. I think that was the only really surprise omission from the squad. Do they play Andy McBride there at 3, which I think they will, which allows you to maybe play an extra seam bowler and strengthen yourself down the order. Andy McBride has played really well at number 3. Has almost been a bit of a renaissance for him in Irish colours, and definitely then the fast bowling department, that 1 or 2 positions between Barry McCarthy and Craig Young, Graham Hume, I think we know Josh Little and Mark Adair are going to be selected. I think it's just a case of what way they work those 3, McCarthy, Young and Hume, because other than that it's quite a settled team. As I said, that middle order is where Ireland's strength is. Tector, Camphor, Tucker and Dockrell, they've really under Heinrich Malan been set in stone, if you like, and produced really strong performances, not more so than last month in Essex against Bangladesh. So that is a strength of Ireland. real, I suppose not the weakness, but the question mark around this Irish side is up top, what way they work the top three, and then certainly two of the fast bowling spots. Do they go with McCarthy, Young or Graham Hume, who's been there and played for Ireland quite consistently now for a year or so?
The men's squad, of course, aren't the only ones that are going to be away. The women's team have a series against the West Indies. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, well, it's an really interesting tour. It's their first bit of international cricket since the World Cup in February, which seems like quite a long time ago, and I'm sure it does for Ed Joyce and the Irish side. I'm sure they'll be looking to get back out there. 3 one-day internationals, 3 T20 internationals, and it was funny, Ireland came really close to a win at that World Cup against the West Indies if it wasn't for brilliance from Hayley Matthew with the bat, which was the game changer. The 3 one-day internationals are part of the new ICC Women's Championship, which is guaranteed fixtures against high quality sides for Ireland. So they'll be looking to get a win. I think they'll be targeting maybe a win or two, certainly in the 6 games. 3, as I say, one-day internationals, 3 T20s. I'm sure they'll be looking to pick up a win or two. The interesting real news from the squad, I mean, it's quite a settled Irish squad, similar to the men's side. The women's side has been quite a settled squad over the last while. The only real news is that Jane Maguire and Shauna Kavanagh are ruled out through injury, and 16-year-old Eimear Maguire is going to go on her first tour with the senior side. She's played for the Ireland under-19. She's a left-arm spinner from the Hills. So that's the real news. Ireland, Ed Joyce was kind of saying that they want to strengthen that part of the game. Obviously you've got Leah Paul with her left-arm spin, but a real chance for Eimear Maguire at a young age to go to, tour the Caribbean. They don't come around too often, and I'm sure that squad, as I say, it's quite settled with.
It's still so young though, average age 24, but they're getting experience.
Yeah, absolutely, and as I said, the likes of Gabby Lewis and Orla Prendergast that are becoming senior players and have become senior players over the last 12 to 18 months. Amy Hunter as well, and then coupled in there with a little bit of experience. Laura Delaney's been around for a long time, obviously skippers the squad. Arlene Kelly, Eimear Richardson, Mary Waldron. So it's an interesting balance between the young and the old. But I'm sure Ed Joyce will be looking for improvement and looking to get a win, and a kind of a statement win out in the Caribbean. Because the West Indies, yes, they're 6 years ago they were the T20 champions in the women's game in 2016, but they aren't necessarily the powerhouse they were then. So it's a real opportunity. Ireland know what the West Indies are all about, and a chance to pick up a win or two and get something out of that Caribbean tour, because they're going to have Australia coming to town later in the summer, and that is a huge step up again. So they'll be looking for big improvements, and particularly in the 50 over format where they haven't played an awful lot of cricket, trying to get comfortable in that aspect of the game. And as I said, that's part of the ICC Women's Championship fixtures, so there's going to be more and more one-day internationals for the Irish women's side over the next while.
And finally then, on the domestic front, we've had lots of action since we last spoke. What has been the highlights for you? Well,
the Northern Knights in the men's domestic Rero Interpros, both in the 20 over and the 50 over format, have been the outstanding team so far. The first T20 festival down in Cork last week, they won 3 games from 3. The Warriors, Northwest Warriors themselves, had a good week. 2 wins from their 3 games, but were beaten by the Northern Knights. Again, Morgan Toppin is someone who's been in really good form. He spent the winter away, I think, in New Zealand, and has really moved on his game, getting a couple of half centuries. Leinster will be really disappointed, no wins from their 3 games. They've had a change of coach now. Nigel Jones has moved to a role within Cricket Ireland, so Andre Botha has stepped in as interim coach of the Leinster Lightning, and they suffered a heavy defeat down in Munster, and Neil Rock and Morgan Toppin put on a show. Neil Rock in particular, 79 off 26, striking it at over 300 with 6 sixes. He's had an unbelievable start to the summer as well, and the Northern Knights hit the highest ever score in the IP20 with 236. So the Northern Knights have got off to a wonderful start, especially when you consider they've not had Mark Adair for too many of those games, and James McCullum's obviously suffered a huge ankle injury at the test match. So 2 big losses for them in terms of their squad. But it was funny speaking to Simon Johnston before the start of the Interpros for the Green Ball show. He was very happy with the work they did in the winter, and I think it's proven that top of the 50 over format, and 3 wins from 3 in the T20 as well. They'll be delighted with their start. And then in the Evoke Super 20 series, the Scorchers claimed that title for the 3rd year in a row. And really they've been dominant over the last few years, captained by Gabby Lewis, and obviously been boosted by Marianne Masunda joining the team. So that's a formidable opening partnership for them at the top of the order. And they've been really dominant, as I said. They won the final game by 9 wickets. A pretty easy win. Gabby Lewis getting an unbeaten half century. So that's the Evoke Super 20 series done with, for the moment. The 50 over games return starting next week with the Typhoons and the Dragons. And then after, it takes a bit of a break with the Tour of the Caribbean, so they'll return in mid-July to run off the rest of that 50 over format.
And we also have the Arachis Irish Senior Cup and National Cup. It's quarter-final stage.
Yeah, it's getting to that stage of the season where teams are starting to map out their routes to the finals, to the big days in the Irish club calendar. Just run you through the draw, particularly for the Arachis Irish Senior Cup. The Hills are at home to Estonians. Estonians who had a big win against Lisburn in the last round. Pembroke are at home to Balbriggan. Balbriggan, one of the rising sides in the Irish club game, have Premier League champions in Leinster last year and then T20 champions already for them. And Warringstown and Merwe, a repeat of the 2015, the 2016 and the 2018 finals. So that's going to be a huge game up at the lawn. Merwe overcoming YMCA in the last round and Warringstown overcoming Clontarf. So Warringstown have been dealt a couple of tough draws there, but at least they're at home in their view for the quarter final against Marion. And Leinster will host Phoenix, and Leinster have probably been the side that have done the most damage so far, beating CSNI and COYMS. They've had a really good start to the season. They've really improved over the last few years. Look like they've settled back into being a Premier League club after a few years down in the second tier in Leinster. So it's definitely got a bit of a Leinster feel to it. 6 of the 8 sides left in the Arachis Irish Senior Cup are from Leinster, and just the 2 from the NCU at Estonians and Warringstown. And Warringstown will be hoping to go deep in the competition again, of course, with a home tie against Marion. And then to the Arachis Irish National Cup, bit more of a northern feel to it. Rush are away to St Johnstone. Muckamore host Terranure. Cliftonville, one of the standout sides so far in this competition, they host Killyclooney, and Derryackie host Limerick, who make the long journey from County Limerick up north. Of course, Limerick were finalists in 2018 and Derryackie finalists in 2013. Rush had a big win against North County in the last round. I think pretty routine win for them. They'll be really happy with that, but there was some outstanding performances in the Irish National Cup. I have to give a mention to Blady Capel, who made 136, and then Derryackie had a huge win against Burndennet. Jamie McGowan made 144 and Patrick Kruger 182 in a 312 run stand. So there's some good sides left in the competition. It's going to go all the way. As I said, Cliftonville, they themselves had 2 Centurions, Francis Collins and Jared Wilson. They beat Athlone by 130 odd runs. So there's some good sides left in the competition. Probably one of the standout wins, one of the surprise wins, was Limerick beating Craiga in the last round. Tim Smitty's making 90 and the captain Arsan Anwar with 52 not outs brought them to a 7 wicket win. So it's all to play for in both cup competitions, and as I said, teams will be mapping out their way, looking to get to the final and looking to get to the 2 of the big days in the Irish club calendar.
Thanks so much for all of that. Plenty to look forward to. Appreciate you coming in and taking the time. Now, I am delighted to be joined by Eimear Richardson, who is back in Dublin ahead of the Ireland Women's Tour to the Caribbean. So, Eimear, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Great to be back, and it's good to see the sun shining as well.
I hope you're taking some credit for bringing that sunshine with you.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think that coming from Dubai, there's got to be something that comes along for the ride. So, yeah.
So tell me, how do you manage with, I guess, having 2 bases?
It's not the easiest, but I suppose first of all, it's both organisations that I'm engaged with, so Cricket Ireland and Northern Districts Cricket Association in New Zealand, are really supportive of my aspirations as an athlete, but also really understanding of my life circumstances as well. So it's a bit of a juggle, and it wouldn't be possible without the willingness of, I suppose, all 3 parties and both parties. So yeah, I'm pretty grateful for the opportunities that I get.
So what's life like for you then? Like, just kind of give us a bit of a broad picture of what you're at.
So my partner and I live in Hamilton in New Zealand. I'm general manager of community cricket for Northern Districts Cricket Association. So it's one of the provincial unions of New Zealand, and really myself and the team just look at ways to grow the game, ways to be better, and ways to make the game a game for all. So it's a really exciting opportunity and role, and something that I've progressed, I suppose, through the last 10 years of living in New Zealand, but while also then maintaining the ability to play for Ireland. I did have a bit of a break there for a while, but yeah, was super excited to get back involved in 2018 and to go to the World Cup in the West Indies, and really grateful for the opportunities that have come my way since.
It sounds like a juggle. You have a lot going on. What are the pressures and the challenges like?
Keeping everybody happy or meeting the needs of everything that you want. I suppose, the challenge for me is that I'm still working full time while trying to play in a now pretty much full professional era. So the challenge there is really it's the motivation. It's the motivation to get up and to go and do your training before you go to work, do your training after you go to work, to do the hard yards, work the extra hours so that you can get the time off to be able to come and do this, while then also continuing to work while you're over here to keep then all the balls rolling at the same time. So there's a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of high motivation and willingness and eagerness to make it work. It's certainly, it's opportunities of a lifetime. And yeah, at the moment I've been able to do it, and I hope that it can continue for a while yet.
When you think of when and where you started, are you surprised that you still have a career, or you have a career that's now in a new professional era, that you're still going and it's actually happened?
Yeah, definitely. If you'd asked me what I wanted to be when I was younger, I would have been a professional athlete. But unfortunately, when I was coming through the ranks in my time frame predominantly, it was all amateur, and I've been really lucky enough to see the start of that evolution and the start of transitioning from an amateur era into a semi-professional and professional environment. And I suppose the next stages of that progress will be pay parity as well. And that's really, I suppose, what a lot of sports are aiming for and should be aiming for. So I've really been through that transitional element. And so all through my career, I've had to have a job and I've had to train outside hours. So it's kind of all that I know. I'd absolutely love to be able to do it full time, but unfortunately at the moment, it's just not feasible with where I'm at within my stage of my career, etc. I've lived, in New Zealand now for about 10 years. And really it started off with just a goal to go over to Australia and to pit myself against all the best players that are over there. And from there, the opportunities and the exposure, I ended up in New Zealand. And since then, I've just been able to progress and evolve a career in sports administration, which is what my degree from UCD is in sports management. And so I've been really lucky along the way to have really supportive employers, which have allowed me to travel back and forth. And also for Cricket Ireland for bringing me back and forth as well. So yeah, so it's a bit of a juggle, but it's certainly a journey that I wouldn't have thought I would have been on at any point when I was 22, packing my bag to go to Australia for the first time, but certainly something that I'm really grateful for the opportunities and the exposures that I've had to not only world-class coaching, but also world-class athletes as teammates and environments. And yeah, hopefully I'm a better player for that.
I know we don't live in a world of what ifs, but when you think of what you're able to achieve in the environment that you were, and then you're getting the taste of the professional lives that the future cricketers are really going to benefit from, what would you think would have been the benefits to what you were able to achieve, or what would have been the benefits to your game?
Had I been able to be professional earlier? It's unquestionable. Like, I've seen a transition through in Australia, New Zealand, now Ireland, more greatly involved in New Zealand and Irish setup. Obviously I was only in Australia for about 2 years, but it's really, I suppose, you'd just be better for it. And you have a whole life rounded well-being as well. Where you can still have your social life, your social hours aren't dedicated to your training, or your peak hours are actually dedicated to your training, if that makes sense. But look, I'm not the only one. There was an era before me where there was absolutely nothing at all. And then if I think of what the heights and reaches of some of my former teammates in the Irish squad could have attained. I mean, we've got some over the years. We would have had some amazing world-class players had we have had those opportunities to be able to pursue those dreams and those talents. And as well as that, with the environment around us, the facilities have certainly come up leaps and bounds in across Ireland in recent years, and that is only going to help elevate and propel our capabilities as players and as programs to compete on the world stage.
In terms of visibility, is it just a completely changed landscape for women's cricket?
Oh, totally. And to be honest with you, just it's the perception of the game is changing, and it's changing for everybody. And the cool thing is that along the way, I've known people come up to a lot of female players and be like, hey, you're my son's favorite player, or hey, you're my daughter's favorite player. And that's what it is. It's about the next generation learning, or not even learning. It's just a norm that athletes, regardless of gender, are on a par. And it comes across in so many other codes. But for some reason, it hasn't quite been there in cricket. And cricket is striving really hard for cricket to just be a game for everybody on the globe. And I think it's an absolutely outstanding aspiration for the ICC, and something that I know Cricket Ireland are working hard on across the community team and the organisation as a whole, for the game to be a game for all across the island. And I think it's an outstanding aspiration. And yeah, it's something that I'm glad to be part of.
I know you said that if I'd asked you when you were 22 if you thought that we would have an environment where there was female professional cricketers, you mentioned the words pay parity there. Do you envision a time when male and female cricketers will be paid the same?
I really hope so. I feel that, society itself is moving. It's moving at a fast pace. And to be honest with you, if we look at the evolution in retaining players within the game, and female players particularly, we have to be able to earn and create a living alongside actually having a job. And I think that that's a really important step and aspiration for the sport, but also for all sports. And I think it's a real move and change in society, and there's certainly waves and motions in that direction. And it's been really great, the evolution that has happened in recent years across a variety of codes. And while I might not be based here all the time, I certainly keep an eye on what's happening across the sports across the island of Ireland. And you can certainly see a swift change in direction and I suppose target ahead. The challenge, I think, for all codes alongside cricket will be the pace at what they can move. And hopefully it's pretty fast.
Do you see yourself having a role in a coaching environment in the future? Obviously, you're still playing now, but when we look at how things are changing and, we're seeing professional player contracts, we're seeing more coaches, female coaches getting involved in the game. You would hope that there will be a much wider industry for females in sport. Would you see yourself in a coaching role at all in the future?
Yeah, definitely. It's something I'm actually, alongside my administrative career, I'm currently on a performance coach course through New Zealand Cricket at the moment. Definitely something that I'm keen to keep a door open with towards the future. Look, I think if you love the game and you think tactically about the game, there's lots of opportunities within coaching, whether that's at the youth stages, senior stages, and then different tiers as well, which are starting to establish themselves across both the male and female game in Ireland. So definitely, while not right now, definitely something that I have an eye on towards in the future, because the other thing about it is that it allows you to be, again, global, if that makes sense. And we've got lots of coaches which are active, across the globe. There's a couple of coaches in Australia, there's a couple of coaches in New Zealand, a couple of coaches throughout Europe, etc. And it's really great to see that some of our Irish coaches, male and female, are starting to transcend some of those global coaching roles. So yeah, long may it continue, and potentially I might be one of them.
Well, you do have a little bit more cricket to play yet. You're going to be heading off to the Caribbean for that tour. How have preparations been going?
Yeah, really good. So the squad's been working really hard, across the summer so far in the Super Series, etc. I myself got back on, I think it was Thursday last week, so straight into it on Friday down in Oak Hill, which was really awesome to be able to go back and connect with, all the team and then all the girls, and the coaches as well. So yeah, so looking forward to. I think we travel away on Tuesday next week, and Wednesday, I think. We'll better get that date wrong for the airport. But yeah, no, really looking forward to it. And we've got a full schedule ahead in the week ahead, which will be really great with a couple of practice games as well.
It's been a bit of a break, though, over the last few months. Has that been a good thing, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think that you, in the sporting context, you can't be on top all the time. You have to have your downtime. And I think the team have been working really hard, and that's across both the players and the coaches as well. So I think it's been a welcome kind of, not a rest period, but I suppose a lower intensity period, which has allowed everybody to regroup, recenter, and also totally focus on the tasks that are ahead of us now.
And in terms of the squad, look, there's always seems to be talk about how young it is and average age of 24, but there's still quite a number of experienced players. And even some of those young players have played a lot of cricket. But how important is that leadership role when you do look around and see so many players who are in their early 20s or teenagers as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. I mean, I'd say that there's potentially 20 years difference between oldest and youngest.
That's mad.
So, it's definitely an environment for everyone within that. But look, I think that the mix and the dynamic is really important. I think you get it across all teams, and that's what makes our team really great, is that we have that open and honest environment for which everybody is always welcome and included. And look, there's been some good banter. We've got the Spinners Union going on at the nets, and I'm certainly at one end of that bracket, and a couple of the players at the other end of the bracket. But it's all just, for me, it's about being able to impart that experience. But also, we've got some fantastic players at the moment who are traveling around, like Orla Prendergast being over in England, etc. Her being able to come back to the group, share that experience, as you said. It's not just about age, it's actually just about the exposures that we're getting. There's Gabby who's been to Fairbreak, etc., and being able to take those learnings and bring them back to the group as a whole only continue to make us stronger as a unit.
You've got such a busy few months coming up. Australia are going to be in town as well. For you, what are you looking forward to most?
Oh, look, I think that, you can't go past a trip to the Caribbean, especially as a spinner. I think that's something, hopefully the decks, will play in our favour. But look, I know that the Australia Challenge will be absolutely monumental. We played them a couple of seasons ago here in Ireland as well. And, for us, it's an opportunity to pit ourselves and to try and assess where we are and to really be better than we were the last time. And we played them as well. And there's always great opportunities within those fixtures to grow and to learn and to really pit ourselves against the world's best. And to be honest, that's why we're here. That's why we're competing. And that's what we're going to strive to do.
I was reading about Harry Tector being the ICC Player of the Month, and your name popped up as well as having that award a few years ago now, which is a brilliant honour, really.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. And it was, I actually heard it on the radio yesterday for Harry. And I think it's just so awesome to see that there's, some Irish athletes, and especially in such a high activity period globally, for Harry to get that recognition as well. But I think it's amazing that actually we, it said on the radio, we've had 3 athletes from Ireland. Laura Delaney was actually the first one first Irish player to get that. And I think it's just phenomenal. And again, speaks leaps and bounds to the progress that we're making as a country, as individual athletes. And yeah, hopefully we'll continue to get a few more notches on the book there.
Yeah, well, with all the cricket that's coming up over the next while, who knows what's going to happen. Thank you so much, Eimear, for all of that. Really great insight into the journey that you've been on, the career that you've had, and all that's coming up as well over the next while. Now it's time for our Answer Me This segment, and I'm delighted to say that we're going to speak to former Ireland international and current National Talent Pathway Manager, Albert van der Merwe. How are you, Albert?
Hi, Marie. Good. How are you?
Yes, I'm great. Thank you very much.
Good stuff.
Talent Pathway Manager. It sounds like a very important role.
Yeah, look, it's I suppose in a nutshell, it's ensuring the pipeline that feeds our international teams for years to come is secure. It's working. There's a lot goes into it, a lot of people working on it. I suppose I oversee the program. That includes domestic competitions for our youth interprovincial and kind of a bridge between senior interprovincial and super series with our future series program. So look, we have a busy summer ahead. We have about 64 pathway games, domestic pathway games, and then our national underage teams. I reckon we've mid-30s games, teams touring abroad. So it's a busy summer. But yeah, love the job and the people I'm working with. So long way to continue.
For you then, what would determine you being successful in the role? Is it to get a player to senior level or to just have as many players playing at grassroots level?
I suppose in terms of grassroots, the more people that play, obviously the better. The more people that play any sport, it's better. In terms of that, how that transfers into the space I'm in terms of players, into the kind of how they develop and going forward. The more players that start, you have a bigger base to work from in terms of the players you can potentially select and help develop. How I measure success, I suppose, is numerous, is creating the platform for these players to develop in terms of the programs we run. And ultimately, it's, what we see in years to come of how many of our players have come through our own system, homegrown, from that grassroots, like you said, and then ultimately playing for the national teams and, hopefully forging successful careers.
So when you see somebody like Harry Tector winning the ICC Player of the Month, that must give you a big boost.
Yeah, look, I'm delighted for Harry, and I don't think anyone is really surprised that know Harry and how hard he works. I've been lucky enough to see him as, I think from the first time I see him was the age of 9 or 10. Lucky enough to work and play at the same club as him when he was a youngster, and it was very evident from early days that he had not only the talent but the hunger and drive to take that talent and make himself into a top class, world class cricketer at this stage.
Is there a standout characteristic that you see in these players that do go on and fulfill their potential?
Look, I think talent takes you so far, and any player that plays at the top level is talented. So that kind of bottoms out in a certain sense. I think it's the players who are hungry, who works hard, not only at the technical games, but their lifestyle, the mental side of their game. I think those are the kind of 1-2% things that differentiates the standard player or the average player to the world-class player. So look, I think someone like a Harry is, he's riding the crest of the wave at the minute, and long may that continue. But, he certainly showed that's the kind of method, and, it's not surprising that he's doing so well.
All very interesting. But now we need to talk about you, and we're going to get into our Answer Me This segment. So what do you enjoy most about cricket?
Well, everything really. It's been something that's been a part of my life. I think from the age of 5 or 6, I remember growing up. Dad was a school teacher, so I pegged along and watched cricket trainings at school and got involved, and it kind of fostered a love for the game. I suppose when you get to this stage of your career or of your life, you've played and you're still involved in cricket. Luckily, I'm very thankful that I am. It's the people you meet along the way, the connections you make. We forget games and runs we've scored and wickets we've taken, but you remember the people, and I think that's a great thing, not just about cricket, but all kinds of sport. I think cricket is unique in the sense that you spend an awful long day together playing. It's not everyone's cup of tea. If they didn't grow up with cricket or get into cricket, they can't understand how people can spend all day on the cricket field. But I think that kind of certainly helps forge bonds and connections and the memories you make. So look, people are what make life and what makes sport. So that's probably the overriding thing. And then I think why I enjoyed it as a kid is it's the team element, but it was also the individual element where you kind of competed against yourself a little bit as well, and you measured yourself against yourself. So that was something that I found quite unique in the different types of sports I played.
So tell me about those other sports that you played. What else caught your interest when you were younger?
Oh, culturally, it was, growing up in the Southern Hemisphere, sunny climes, and played everything. Summer was cricket and tennis and athletics, and winter was rugby and hockey, and there was a bit of golf in between, and just any ball that was lying around, you kicked around, threw around. So you kind of just, it was just you didn't know any different. So yeah, tried my hand at everything, and certainly I think that's an important part for any kind of sports person developing, is multiple sports create multiple skills, and it's all transferable, and I think it's a really good learning experience.
Who were your sporting heroes when you were young?
Multiple. Cricket, I suppose I wanted to be a tearaway fast bowler in my youth. Alan Donald was someone that was, the top of the tree at the time. The late Hansie Cronje was someone that every young kid in South Africa at the time, aspired and looked up to. But multiple sports. I like South Africa's rugby would be rugby crazy, so followed rugby very closely. I'm from the Western Cape originally, so Western Province would have been a firm favourite. So yeah, look, I enjoyed all sports, followed tennis, loved Stefan Edberg when I was a kid, and football, Eric Cantona just seemed like the coolest dude alive at the time. So yeah, all kind of mixed people in there.
So how did you end up coming to live in Ireland and then playing for Ireland?
By chance. Originally, a very good friend of mine had 2 summers in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, playing club cricket. He couldn't return, and the club asked him, do they know of anyone that would can he advise of anyone? And, I was, luckily he said my name, and then it turned out my brother and myself came over to Northern Ireland for a summer of cricket. And my summer of cricket turned into what's nearly 20 years in Ireland. So along the way, got very lucky and very blessed, and a lot of things had to align, and very fortunate to have represented Ireland for a brief period.
Any standout moments from that time, special memories?
Getting your first cap is always special. It's not something that I ever thought. It was never on the radar really until, you started thinking, something could happen here. So it was a very proud moment. My mom was actually visiting at the time, so it was quite nice that she was around. From a playing point of view, I suppose I'm going to pick and I actually didn't play in the match. I was part of the squad, but it was the victory over England, the World Cup in Bangalore in 2011. It was just an incredible atmosphere. It was surreal, and it got to the point, I think it was Andrew White, Nigel Jones, and myself that were doing 12 and 13th and 14-man duties, and we were sitting behind the advertising boards, and I think it was 60 or 70 runs out, and you just had the sense that this is going to be it. And when John Mooney hit the boundary, it will live with me forever. Even though I didn't play, it was an incredible moment to be a part of.
Yeah, it must have been. It's one of those ones I think that everybody remembers. What's the best piece of cricket advice that you've received that has helped you in your career?
If you're going to panic slowly.
How does that work?
Well, it does. The first piece of advice is always not to panic, but if you are going to panic, slowly. And I think cricket lends itself to sometimes just that. So that's something that kind of stuck with me I can't remember where I heard it or got the advice. But I suppose from a young age, my dad instilled in all of us respect, and he always said if you walk off the pitch, whether you won or you lost, and you shake the opposition's hand, that someone wouldn't have known who won or who lost. To show that respect to the opposition and just the game in general. I think I always say cricket's a bit like life. So if you don't respect it, it'll turn on you. So for me, that's one of the biggest things is respect.
Good advice. So what does your perfect day away from cricket look like?
Currently, I've two youngsters at home, 2 years and 5 months. So there's not a lot of time for being away at the minute. So any day where you can get a slight bit of a line would be great. But in an ideal world, I suppose spending time with the family and making time for the family, because it's such a busy time of the year and that we're coming into now as well. So that would be good to just have a day where mum and dad could go away and sit at the Haddington House in Dunleary and look over the harbour and have a pizza outside, and that would be quite good at this stage.
I can't even imagine a time like that when you have small kids. It's pretty much impossible.
Great fun.
I have some quick fire questions to finish. Mullets, nifty or naff?
Oh, naff. They're going to look around 20 years from now. They're going to look back and go, "What was I thinking?"
Sledging, part of it or park it?
Part of it.
Who did you most enjoy playing with in the Irish team?
That's a great question. John Mooney was one. I just loved his competitiveness, and every time he walked onto the pitch, just was just there to see the competitiveness. And Max Sorensen, one of my good mates, it was great pleasure to play along with someone that used to be housemates and club mates with. So that would have been another one.
The song that you've played most in the last month?
Oh, wow! The Bare Necessities from the Jungle Book is currently in the house. Not by choice, but look, I've listened to music every morning on the way in. So what was this morning on playlist would have been Counting Crows and Matchbox 20. So
not bad. And the movie that you've last watched and enjoyed?
It was actually I've watched it recently again, and it was The Departed from Scorsese. I watched that again recently, and that's one of the ones that's up there.
Okay, that is brilliant. Thank you so much, Albert, and thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Nice to get to know you on Green Ball today, and we will be talking to you again soon, no doubt. Now, thanks for listening, and join us again in the next show to discuss the World Cup Qualifier and the women in the Caribbean. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, also rate and leave a review, as it really helps other fans find us. And if you have any questions, you can email us at thegreenballshow@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to find an answer. Farewell for now.